Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call, Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls, bottom line the information for you. There's a lot going on in Iraq, in the Middle East, in Europe, and certainly in the United States, and a lot of the things are overlapping one another. It's kind of a confused hodgepodge. I was on a call last week. I was privileged to participate. When I say participate, a listener to a call that I got a little bit of insight into where things may be going. I'm going to share that with you today. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. Before we begin, of course, our disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be relevant. The most relevant piece of information, of course, being the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Despite the confusion that I'm going to discuss here today, I still am of the belief that we could see a reinstitution of the dinar within the next 30 days. There's a lot of chaos in Iraq right now. We seem to have a stalemate in the parliament. We're still operating under a caretaker government. We have international agencies like the IMF, the World Bank, and the United States Treasury Department all imploring Iraq to proceed with the formation of a government. But despite that, we still remain with the caretaker government. However, I will say that the individuals involved in the caretaker government, that being Kazemi as the prime minister, Salih as the president of the republic, and al-Habussi as the speaker, in my opinion, they're the right guys. And the reason I mention that is I'm going to pick up on that a little later and why I think having those three individuals in place might be the difference to getting some things done here. Now, there are two schools of thought about how to proceed. And when I say that, I'm referring to what's of most importance to us, which is the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. There is one school of thought that passage of the budget and reinstitution of the dinar in country simply cannot be done with a caretaker government. And there is a school of thought that despite the passage of the budget and the reinstitution of the currency might constitute an extra constitutional action, it still could proceed. So I want to talk a little bit about that. How can they proceed if what they would be doing would be considered extra constitutional? Well, first, let me qualify what I'm about to say with a couple of points. First, with regard to the government of Iraq, they have acted extra constitutionally repeatedly since 2003. So the argument that they might proceed in an extra constitutional fashion, the precedent's already been set for that to occur. Second, for those that were involved in the reinstitution of the Kuwaiti dinar, there was chaos in Kuwait at the time, right up until the eve of the reinstatement of the currency. Arguments were being made that the Kuwaiti dinar could not reinstitute anytime soon because of the chaos in country. And yet the next day, the currency reinstituted. So we really don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that things can happen in an extra constitutional environment. So I'm going to speculate a little bit here as to what I think could happen and why I believe that the reinstitution of the dinar could still occur in the next 30 days. Why can't caretaker Prime Minister Kazemi send the budget to Parliament for passage? Why couldn't he do that? And why is passage of the budget necessary or as a prerequisite for the reinstitution of their currency? In my view, a stronger argument would be it makes more sense to reinstitute their currency prior to passage of the budget, because passage of the budget with a program rate, or even worse, passage of a budget with the program rate and subsequent expenditures at the program rate, would make it extremely difficult, not impossible, but much more difficult to reconfigure the budget based on the new exchange rate. We also know that the CBI has the constitutional authority to act unilaterally with regard to the exchange rate. So why can't they change the exchange rate under a caretaker government? It may be a caretaker government, but they still have to function. And we've come to a place in time where the reinstitution of their currency and the passage of their budget needs to occur. Lastly, let's assume hypothetically that the budget passes and the currency is reinstituted under the caretaker government. Now, we all know that there are individuals that are working diligently to stop all of this for their own selfish and or political reasons. So what would they do? And I'm talking primarily about the corrupt pro-Iranian Shia within the Iraqi government. What are they going to do? They're going to go to the federal Supreme Court. Do I think that I think it would be highly unlikely that the federal Supreme Court would nullify the reinstitution of the dinar and the passage of the 22 budget by a caretaker government, even if it were extra-constitutional. I think there's an equal chance that they will either bless what's occurred or they simply won't take the case. This is why I still believe that we're looking at a potential reinstitution in the next 30 days. I know it's frustrating for all of us. There are so many layers of what's going on. We have the sectarian and the tribal rivalries within Iraq. We have Iran, which wants Iraq to remain its piggy bank. We have the corrupt pro-Iranian officials in Iraq who don't want it to occur. They definitely don't want the corrupt files open and to pay consequences for the crimes that they've been committing over the last 15 to 20 years. But then we have the EU, we have the World Bank, we have the United Nations, we have the IMF, we have the Bank of International Settlements, and we even have the United States Treasury that would like to see this done. Even though when this occurs, the dinar will no longer be pegged to the U.S. dollar, but will in fact be pegged to the IMF basket of currencies. So it's a complicated situation. There are a lot of players involved. They have their own conflicting and contradictory agendas. But it seems to me that we've reached a point of no return. Certainly, in my opinion, it's only a matter of when and not if the dinar reinstitutes. But again, it seems as though the momentum is moving forward. One other thing I'll mention is al-Sadr has been very Machiavellian in what he's done. He's managed to step aside and allow the coalition framework to blow itself up. While that was occurring, he was reinforcing the coalition from his end. So that's another issue that may be resolved very, very shortly as well. What could happen is we could see the formation of the government, the reinstitution of the currency all occur within a matter of days. And again, it's our hope that that's the case. But I think the individuals that are trying to stop this grow weaker every day, and the forces that want to push this thing through, not only for Iraq, but for the other countries that want to see their currencies come out of a program rate as well. We also see the global shift away from fiat currencies. the central banks are fighting hard, and their counter move is, of course, to digitize everything. So while on the one hand we'll see an equilibrium of global currency valuations based on Basel III compliance, and governments no longer being able to artificially devalue their currencies for international reasons, and the only response would be the digital currency. So the mere fact, and of course I oppose, for reasons I've explained ad nauseum, I oppose the digital currencies, but the fact that the central banks are pushing hard against cryptos, are pushing down or trying to push down the value of precious metals, and are trying to aggressively pursue the digital currency tells you that they're losing the battle in terms of control, and that's a good thing. Now, the reason Trusts Unlimited has put their turnkey program in place to assist those of us that have dinar and other currencies is because we were aware that most of the individuals that hold currencies, I'm not talking about the hedge funds and the central banks and the VIPs, I'm talking about the average hardworking American who, pursuant to Executive Order 13303, were permitted to participate in the revaluation of these currencies. For the first time in their life, they will be having to deal with the daunting task of managing a substantial amount of wealth that they've literally accumulated overnight. So we decided to assist those individuals by putting together a turnkey program to assist them. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts, which I've recently been referring to as a family package. And the reason I've done that is because not only is this package of trusts invaluable for individuals that hold these currencies or hold any asset that they think is going to appreciate substantially, but because the nefarious, and that's the word I'm going to use, because of the nefarious actions of the people running the federal government at this time, we need to utilize every legitimate constitutional protection available to us. And this package will provide protections far beyond protecting the wealth that we will accumulate from the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar and some of these other currencies. Phase 2 of our program involves all of the product, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to our clients after the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's talk a little bit about this asset protection. There are a number of entities that exist that can provide individuals and families some level of asset protection. For example, some individuals have established LLCs and sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection, but primarily by dividing business assets from personal assets. The problem here for us is that the possession of the dinar and these other currencies is a personal, not a business asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one individual or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So they're not going to provide the personal and family protection that we're looking for. Some individuals have established something referred to as a revocable living trust, sometimes referred to as a loving trust. These are statutory trusts designed primarily to exempt individuals' estates from the cost and delay of probate, and if properly structured, can sometimes reduce or even eliminate the federal estate tax. However, the revocable or living or loving trust can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established individual, single, irrevocable trusts, and the irrevocable trust provides much more protection than could ever be afforded by the LLC, the sub-S corporation, or the revocable trust. In addition, those entities are registered with the government, whereas the irrevocable trust is a private entity. But even the single irrevocable trust has an inherent flaw, and it's this. Because your entire net worth is housed within that one individual trust or person, if any asset within that trust is brought into any form of civil litigation, that would necessarily drag the other assets and net worth that you possess into that litigation as well. The solution is to provide a package of irrevocable trust to provide individual or family protection. That's the package we've established. It provides the best domestic asset protection available. And this is why it's an important component in protecting your wealth, whether you have currencies or not. However, for the purpose of this call, we're talking to individuals that are, in fact, holders of dinar and other currencies. So establishment of this trust package is not only critical to protecting that wealth, but the package must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and I'm going to review the reasons why this is the case. First, by establishing this trust package, you will protect your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. This is important for a number of reasons. After you've acquired this wealth, even if you only have $1 million dinar, you will be a millionaire. 1 in 4 millionaires is sued during their lifetime. 40% of all lawsuits are frivolous lawsuits, meaning individuals know they have a weak case, so they file a nuisance lawsuit in anticipation of getting some sort of a payoff. Here's the problem. They file a nuisance lawsuit when your assets are in trust. They have no knowledge of what your net worth or your holdings are, so they are going to have to hire an attorney who will want an upfront fee rather than work on a retainer because they don't know what you could afford to pay in a civil suit. Well, an individual filing a frivolous lawsuit is not going to pay a large upfront retainer, so there will be no lawsuit. Second, by establishing this trust, you're going to avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers are probably going to spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's come along at the precise time these currencies have revalued, and there's many other much more important things you'd rather be doing. And third, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust. On the other hand, if your trust is in force and you have assigned your currencies to that pre-RV trust, you will have transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within a rather sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS decides to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on the tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals, you have no problem giving them the currency outright to exchange for themselves or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange. That can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through the specially designed gift subtrust, which is part of our family package. And because you're gifting through that gift subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be in trust, protected along with your U.S. dollars. In addition, the language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency, or currency, meaning we've created a sliding scale. So you can gift to these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And third, because their U.S. dollars are in this gift subtrust within our package, you will be in direct control of those funds, meaning that you can manage, invest, and distribute the money to those individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish our trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now, that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases, even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. Now, this scenario is not only totally unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. How? Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Now, what does this mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an irrevocable entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before to explain. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, The only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000. The value of the currency at the time you transferred them out of title and to our trust package, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we have established a package of trusts. This is why it's the best asset protection available, and I'll give you an example of how this would work. Once again, we use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, how does this protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons having nothing whatsoever to do with the accident in question. So the plaintiffs, therefore, would have no standing to pursue those separate legal entities. So your package of trusts work very much the way a commercial barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your trust package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection family trusts, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, which involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of these currencies and your acquisition of this wealth. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar. The only way that seminar will not take place is if there is a problem with COVID and the logistics are just too difficult in Disney. If that's in fact the case, then we will be putting a DVD together in office and making it available to everyone. Now, present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of our trust packages. Many of our clients have also expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even some of the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And, of course, the proper way to fund those new entities is with the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to these newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists on hand. With the acquisition of this wealth, you're going to want to take advantage of some of the more sophisticated tax strategies to legally reduce your tax exposure. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets as quickly as possible, and in our humble opinion, you're going to want to transition a lot of your wealth to tangible assets to avoid the inflation and volatility of some of the financial assets as well. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and manage the, one optional gift sub-trust, and then 8 additional sub-trusts to hold financial assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. After the revaluation of the dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies, the master trust will then hold your financial assets like checking accounts, bank accounts, and investment accounts. And, of course, at that point in time, you'll reassess your estate, what you want to keep, what you want to gift. You'll be purchasing with this wealth, I'm sure, additional financial assets, homes, cars, boats, etc., and they will, in turn, fund all of your sub-trusts. So at the end of the day, you will have your master trust that will hold your financial assets and manage these sub-trusts, and then all of your financial assets will be housed in these sub-trusts to provide the asset protection I've just described. Now, our trust package has, again, initially 10 trusts, although we can add additional sub-trusts as necessary. This was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But over a decade ago, when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that price tag was just going to be unaffordable for too many. So by simplifying the package and delaying funding till after the revaluation, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are a number of ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, which would save you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we've even established a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. One additional method, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 you'd be paying to us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective, once again, is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar for all of the reasons that we've stated. Now, I will be going to a Q&A in just a moment, so I would suggest you have a pen and paper handy because I will give you our contact information. The things we've discussed here are of interest. I strongly suggest you get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need should you wish to proceed with the establishment of your own pre-RV asset protection family trust, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the information, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. Now, before we get to our Q&A, and I must warn you, I'm just having problems with this new format. I'm going to try to work it out today, but They've changed it on us again, and unfortunately, I'm an analog guy in the digital world, and so I'm a little slow with this stuff, but I will do my best. But before we go to the Q&A, and again, for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited, and again, why you should seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation package. Our package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been an attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for about 39 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, it's a little frightening to think, but between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have nearly 80 years' experience working in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim or frankly would want to. But it's important that you understand that based on our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And it's precisely at those times in life that you need and want control. And I'm not talking just about being holders of dinar. I'm talking about life itself. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death, and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre and post-RV, as we understand them. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A here, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you our contact information. And our contact information is as follows. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Now we have a caller in the queue here. Let's see. Okay, our caller is, let's see here. Why won't this thing work? I believe that's 312. Are you there, 312? Are you there? Are you there? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Is this 801?
It is. It's not 312. It's 801.
Okay. Well, I told you I'd screw it up.
It's all right. Jim, it's Clay. How are you?
Yeah, go ahead, Clay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Clay.
No, you're fine. Listen, one question regarding your website. I've been on there several times because I haven't been able to listen to some of these commentaries you've had. But it only goes back to January. None of the new ones are on there.
That's because we duked it out with YouTube, and we're back on YouTube. So if you want to hear this replay, should be up by tomorrow. Certainly, I want it up by 5 today. You would simply go to YouTube, then type in trustsunlimited.com, and then all of the calls will come up.
Okay, so as opposed to going to your website is what you're saying.
Correct. We set the website thing up because too much truth going on here. YouTube didn't like it, and fortunately, we were able to deal with someone that had a modicum of common sense and understood that censorship is a real bad idea. So,
okay.
I don't want to get too political, but we're in political times, but we're back up on YouTube now.
Jim, there are some out there that suggested that the digital dollar that the U.S. was trying to create was holding back the RVRI simply because they wanted to capture all the new millionaires that were going to come into play from the revaluation of this currency. That doesn't seem to be the case now, but it also seems to be that the government has been a holdout. And I don't know if you'd have any inside information as to whether the U.S. did have their hands on delaying this RV. And then in addition to that, if the formation of the government, which looks like it's going to be the 3 presidencies that were there before, which is a good thing, will trigger the RV, because I see nothing else that would hold this thing up.
Well, there are a number of things going on a lot of layers. I don't even know where to begin, because there's first of all, let's just talk about Iran. Iran has been emboldened. Biden is a global laydown. It's obvious for anyone with any common sense and honesty to see that. So we have Biden, who is bad-mouthing Russia because of the Ukraine, and there are other things going on in Ukraine that never seem to be discussed on a federal level. Yet at the same time, Biden then partners with Russia to consummate the nuclear deal in Iran, which only emboldens Iran. And now the Saudis' response is, well, we're not going to pump more oil because we don't like you dealing with Iran. So the fact that Iran is emboldened means they're starting to mess around with Iraq again. Then we have the Treasury, which seems to be okay with the revaluation of the currency because it'll be pegged to the IMF basket, and that's what the globalists want. They want to get rid of the petrodollar, and they want the United States to no longer have the majority within the basket of currencies. They want the yuan to take over there, and then they want their digital currency because that's more control for the central bank. So it's just a hodgepodge. And I at the end of the day, I'm so frustrated, and I get to the point I just wanted to go to the bank, do my exchange, whether it's digital or not. I'm just going to move it out however I have to do it as quickly as I can into tangible assets, get it out of their grimy mitts, and live my life. So it's where we are right now. But you're right. We have the right people in the caretaker government, and as I said on the call, worst case scenario, if they are able to punch all this stuff through, and the pro-Iranian Shia officials in Iraq go to the courts, maybe the courts will say, nope, we're not going to nullify what's happened. It's all good for the country. So that I'm sorry to give you that long-winded answer, but the only way I can answer, it's an open-ended question.
I understand that. I was just wondering if you had anybody over there that was able to tie down when this thing was actually going to trigger. I mean, after 17 years in this thing, it seems ridiculous that this thing can drag on much longer.
Unfortunately, we're always on the fly with this bunch, and things change. But, yes, there's a reason I said I'm still comfortable with the 30 days, all right? But, unfortunately, like I said, there's just too many players involved with too many different agendas, and it's like a wrestling match where one guy's got control and then the other guy does a reversal, and Satter is a perfect example of that. He put together his coalition, then the coalition framework came in and put a stop to that, so he stepped aside, allowed the coalition framework to try to do what they could do. And then in the meantime, he put together the tripartite group, which has now overcome the framework. So it's just what's happening, and it's frustrating. I mean, I have to deal with this every day, all day, so you can't be any more frustrated than me. But, if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say we're on a good path.
All right. Thanks for your time, Jim.
Okay. Take care, Clay. We had one other caller. Unfortunately, I think I messed up and lost him. I apologize for that. That is our last caller for today. Again, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I certainly hope those of you calling in for the first time, or perhaps have called in more than once but have not contacted us for our initial package, I strongly suggest you get the package. With regard to the dinar, something could happen sooner rather than later. But in general, this asset protection family trust is an important vehicle to protect you, especially if we go to a digital currency. And with the surveillance society they're trying to create, this protection is really necessary for every American. So please contact us. Again, get our initial package. It has everything you need if you wish to proceed, but you're under no obligation to do so. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. We will be calling, of course, next week as we do every week. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.